Okay, so we're talking about the legal side of being a creator,
Right.
which,
It's one thing to go viral and get a bunch of views, but if you're trying to build a real business out of this,
yeah,
it's a whole other ball game.
totally. And that's what I love about this interview we're diving into.
Yeah.
This is from the Think Media podcast. It's with Tyler Chou.
I love her.
She's a lawyer, but she's also a creator herself, so she really gets it.
She does. She gets the creator world. And like you said, she's not just quoting legal jargon here.
Right.
She understands the challenges, the opportunities that come with this very unique career path.
Yeah, it's like she speaks our language.
Yes.
And one of the things she gets real about right away is the business side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many of us actually think about forming an LLC when we're first starting out?
Yeah. It's one of those things you kind of push to the side,
Totally.
especially when you're caught up in just like creating content,
Right.
having fun.
Exactly. And she makes a really compelling argument for why it's crucial.
Yeah.
She even throws out this figure of like $2,000 a month in earnings
Oh, yeah.
as a potential tipping point,
Interesting.
especially if you've already got assets.
Yeah, because here's the thing, and this is where it gets real.
Right.
If you're making that kind of money and you have assets like a house or savings investments,
Right.
you're putting that stuff at risk if you're not operating as like a separate legal entity.
So protect your personal stuff from your business stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
But she even goes as far as setting up YouTube channels and trusts for kids.
It sounds crazy, right? But when you think about
Does
it,
that sound kind of crazy?
these channels, these platforms, they could be more valuable than traditional assets someday.
Whoa.
Like we're talking about
That's a lot.
legacy stuff here.
Yeah, that's a lot to wrap my head around.
Right.
But it does highlight how much the legal landscape is changing, right?
Absolutely. We're talking about intangible assets.
Right.
Things that exist purely in the digital realm,
Yeah.
but they have very real, very tangible value. And that's something that traditional legal structures are still trying to catch up with.
So LLC is definitely something to consider.
For sure.
But then she dives into this whole thing about CoffeeZilla and Logan Paul.
Oh, boy.
And that's when things got really real for me.
Yeah, this is a cautionary tale if I've ever heard one, about the importance of having the right insurance,
Okay.
even if you think you're being careful.
So for those who haven't been glued to like YouTube drama lately, can you give us a quick recap?
Okay, so CoffeeZilla, he's this investigative YouTuber,
Yeah.
very thorough, very well-researched.
Yeah.
And he did a whole expose on Logan Paul's CryptoZoo project,
Yeah.
which a lot of people felt was a scam.
I remember this.
Yeah,
Lots of accusations flying around, people claiming they lost money.
exactly. It was messy.
It was messy.
So CoffeeZilla does his due diligence, presents his findings, and Logan Paul actually thanks him initially
Really?
for like bringing these issues to light,
Wow.
but then boom, lawsuit.
Oh, no. And this is where the insurance nightmare comes in.
Big time Logan Paul thought he was covered for defamation,
Okay.
which is essential for anyone putting themselves out there,
Right.
especially if you're doing commentary critique reviews.
Right.
But his insurance broker messed up and didn't get him the right coverage.
Wait, so even if you're a millionaire like Logan Paul,
Yeah,
a legal misstep like that can still come back to bite you?
absolutely, because even if he wins this lawsuit, CoffeeZilla is potentially facing millions in legal fees just to defend himself.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And a little terrifying, to be honest.
It should be. That's why Chou stresses the importance of media insurance, especially defamation coverage, even for creators who are just starting out.
So it's not just for the big names.
No.
If you're doing product reviews, reaction videos, really anything where you're talking about other people, other businesses,
Right.
you got to think about this stuff.
It's about protecting yourself, because even if you're in the right, even if you win, the legal process itself can be incredibly costly.
Okay, so we've got LLCs, we've got insurance,
Mm-hmm.
feeling very adulting right now.
Right.
But then there's the Mr. Beast situation,
Oh, yeah.
which throws a whole other wrench into things.
This one is fascinating because it really gets into employee relations
Yeah.
in the creator economy.
Right.
Like we're talking about power dynamics,
Yeah.
online reputation, the whole shebang.
Right. Those allegations from a former employee,
Right.
without getting into the specifics,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely blew up online.
Oh, yeah.
And it put Mr. Beast in a tough spot.
Sure.
Like, do you engage,
Right.
try to defend yourself publicly, or do you stay silent?
Right.
And Chou, who's obviously dealt with similar situations in Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
actually suggests that no comment is often the best strategy
Right.
in the age of the apology video. That seems almost counterintuitive.
It does, right?
Yeah.
But her argument is that in the online world, things escalate so quickly.
Right.
Attention spans are short. Outrage is almost a currency. And sometimes not feeding into that frenzy is the smartest move.
So it's like starving the fire of oxygen.
Exactly.
Dumping fuel on it.
Look at Blake Lively. Recent controversy, stayed quiet, it blew over.
Okay.
Sometimes silence is more powerful than 1,000 tweets.
That makes sense. But how do you protect yourself legally if you're choosing not to engage publicly?
That's where having rock-solid contracts comes in.
Okay.
And Chou mentioned she now puts the word video specifically in non-disparagement clauses.
Well, that is smart.
Because you never know how a disgruntled ex-employee might choose to air their grievances these days.
Right. A YouTube video can go viral in a heartbeat.
Exactly.
And do some serious damage to your reputation.
Huge.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about everyone's favorite legal gray area, copyright and fair use.
Oh, boy, yeah.
It feels like every creator I know is constantly trying to figure this out.
Right, using music, movie clips, other people's content. Where do you draw the line?
Exactly, and everyone seems to have their own interpretation of what fair use actually means.
And that's the problem. Chou makes a really good point here.
Okay.
Fair use is actually a defense you use in court after you've been sued.
So not a get-out-of-jail-free card?
It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Right.
It's more like
a leaky umbrella.
Yeah, a leaky umbrella in a downpour.
Okay.
You also might get soaked.
That's a terrifyingly accurate analogy.
Yeah.
So how do we avoid getting drenched in lawsuits?
Well, Chou uses this really good example of the YouTuber Sniper Wolf, who was called out for using other people's content without permission.
Oh, yeah, I remember that blowing up.
Yeah, and the argument was that even if it technically fell under fair use, it was still ethically problematic.
Right, because even if it's technically legal, profiting off someone else's hard work without giving them credit just feels wrong.
Exactly, and it's not cool.
It's not cool.
And that situation actually escalated beyond just online criticism.
Really?
Chou represented Jack's Films at the time. Okay.
And she shared this crazy story about how Sniper Wolf showed up at his house after he criticized her.
Seriously?
Yeah, doxing is a real thing, and it can have really scary real-life consequences.
Okay, that takes things to a whole other level.
For sure.
So if we're trying to be like responsible creators and navigate this copyright maze, what are some practical takeaways?
Chou had some really good advice.
Okay.
First, keep the clips short, like 2 to 3 seconds.
Short and sweet?
Yeah.
Got it.
Always give credit.
Okay.
Like, make it crystal clear where you got that content from.
Transparency is key.
And then finally, if you're unsure, just reach out to the original creator.
Okay.
Ask for permission. Maybe offer a licensing fee. Start a dialogue.
Basically, don't be afraid to be a decent human being.
It's amazing how often that gets overlooked.
Right.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Chou seemed cautiously optimistic
Okay.
about the future of fair use, especially on YouTube.
Really? I would have thought it would be the opposite.
Like, with more content being created than ever, wouldn't it be harder to police?
That's exactly her point.
Right.
She argues that YouTube is becoming the new Hollywood.
Okay.
And with the sheer volume of content being uploaded every minute,
Yeah.
it's going to be impossible to monitor every instance of potential copyright infringement.
So more content, more potential problems, but also maybe less risk because it's just too much to keep up with.
Exactly. And she predicts that unless studios are willing to pour massive resources into policing every clip, creators who are thoughtful, they give credit, and they're using content in a transformative way,
Right.
they're probably going to be okay.
Okay.
But she also stresses that creators shouldn't rely solely on YouTube ad revenue.
Right.
She's all about diversifying income streams
Okay.
and building a sustainable business that doesn't live or die by the whims of one platform.
Courses, memberships, merchandise, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Think about it. You're building a brand, a community, a whole ecosystem around your content.
Yeah.
YouTube is just one piece of that puzzle.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
Speaking of not putting all your eggs in one basket,
Right.
Chou had some interesting advice when it came to dealing with YouTube itself, especially if your channel gets demonetized.
Oh, yeah. That's a creator's worst nightmare.
The dreaded
Right.
yellow dollar sign.
She shared this story about a client who
Right.
was this up-and-coming painting channel,
Good.
and they got hit with a demonetization notice because of how they were cross-posting content between Instagram and YouTube.
Wait, what happened?
So they were killing it on Instagram with these short vertical videos, but then they'd upload the same content to YouTube later.
Okay.
Well, some bad actors downloaded their Instagram content,
Oh.
uploaded it to YouTube first,
Oh, no.
and YouTube's system flagged the original creator as the infringer.
Whoa. So even though they were the original creator, because they weren't the first to upload to YouTube, they got penalized.
That's exactly what happened.
That's crazy.
It's a perfect example of how YouTube's copyright system,
Yeah.
while well-intentioned,
Right.
can sometimes miss the nuances.
So what happened to her client? Were they able to get their channel remonetized?
They were, but it took some work.
Okay.
Chou helped them gather evidence, write a script for an appeal video, and even reached out to a contact at YouTube to kind of plead their case.
So having a lawyer in your corner, or at least knowing the right steps to take, is crucial.
It definitely helps to have someone who knows the ropes.
Yeah.
But beyond the legal stuff,
Okay.
Chou's story highlights something really important: document everything.
Okay.
If you are the original creator,
Mm-hmm.
keep records of when and where you created your content.
Consider it your digital paper trail.
Exactly. It's your best defense against false claims and those automated systems that don't always get it right.
Okay, this is a lot to digest.
I know, right?
We've covered everything from LLCs to defamation to the Wild West of fair use.
We went there.
I'm feeling informed, but also a little overwhelmed. Is there anything else?
Actually, there's one more curveball that Chou threw that I think is worth unpacking.
Okay, hit me.
This whole idea of using someone's likeness in your content.
Oh, interesting, like those faceless channels or video essays that focus on celebrities?
Exactly. This is where it gets really interesting because it goes beyond copyright
Okay.
and bumps up against right of publicity laws.
Okay, break that down for me. What are we talking about here?
So imagine you've got a YouTube channel that's basically a deep dive into a specific celebrity,
Okay.
like, say, Sean Diddy Combs.
Okay.
You're using photos, old interview clips, concert footage, maybe even recreating scenes from their life.
Go.
It's all very high quality, well-researched, maybe even transformative in a way.
I can see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
I'm already thinking of a ton of popular channels that do this.
Exactly.
But where does the line get crossed?
That's the million-dollar question. Even if you're crediting your sources and you're checking those fair use boxes, are you infringing on someone's right to control how their name, their image, their likeness is used commercially?
Right, because we're not just talking about using a single photo from Getty Images.
No.
We're talking about building an entire channel and a potentially profitable one around someone else's identity.
Exactly. And that's where it gets legally murky,
Okay.
because the line between commentary criticism and commercial exploitation can get really blurry.
So where does Chou land on this? Does she think these kinds of channels are playing with fire?
She doesn't give a definitive yes or no, which honestly is probably the most truthful answer when you're dealing with legal gray areas.
Right.
But she brings up a really interesting point.
Okay.
Remember how she said YouTube is becoming the new Hollywood?
Yeah, the whole volume of content thing.
Right. She argues that as the platform grows and as these traditional media companies try to navigate this new world, it's going to be nearly impossible to police every use of archival footage, especially if it's being used in a way that's arguably transformative.
So good luck to Diddy's legal team if they're trying to scrub every unauthorized clip of him off the internet.
Exactly. And unless Diddy or someone like him is super aggressive about going after every channel, there's a good chance these channels will keep thriving.
Especially if they're racking up views, getting ad revenue, maybe even landing brand deals.
Exactly. But here's the key takeaway, and I think Chou's advice here is gold: focus on what you can control.
Which is?
Building a sustainable business.
Okay.
Don't put all your eggs in the YouTube basket. Diversify your income streams so you're not solely reliant on ad revenue or algorithms.
So courses, memberships, merch, all that good stuff.
Exactly, because even if your video essay channel on the history of boy bands is deemed perfectly legal today, there's no guarantee it'll be seen that way tomorrow.
Okay, so we've gotten a crash course in everything from LLCs to defamation to the Wild West of fair use.
I'm tired.
I'm feeling informed, slightly terrified, and also strangely inspired.
Right.
But if there's one big takeaway from Chou's advice, what would you say it is?
Okay, so we've gotten a crash course in everything from LLCs to defamation to the Wild West of fair use.
I'm tired.
I'm feeling informed, slightly terrified, and also strangely inspired.
Right.
But if there's one big takeaway from Chou's advice, what would you say it is?
I think for me, it's about finding that sweet spot between Creative freedom and legal responsibility.
Yeah.
Like, it's not one or the other.
Okay.
It's about finding a way to balance both.
Easier said than done.
Definitely not easy, but essential if you want to build a lasting career as a creator.
Okay.
And this is where Chou's closing advice really hit home for me.
Okay.
She said, realize that this is the future. YouTube is the future press record, and just go.
I love that. So inspiring.
Right.
But, and maybe this is just my inner worrywart talking,
Yeah.
press record and just go, sounds amazing in theory.
Okay.
But what about all those legal landmines we just talked about?
How do you balance that go-getter attitude with, not ending up in legal hot water?
That's the key, isn't it? It's not about throwing caution to the wind.
Okay.
It's about being informed about the risks,
Yeah.
taking calculated chances, and building a business that can handle those ups and downs that inevitably come with the territory.
Okay, so informed action, not reckless abandon. Got it.
Yeah.
Learn the basics of copyright.
Right.
Consider things like media insurance. Even if you're just starting out,
Yeah.
maybe even have a quick chat with a lawyer who understands the creator world.
Because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactly.
Something like that.
You might seem daunting, all this legal stuff, but it's really about empowering yourself.
Okay.
The more you know, the more confident you could be in your creative choices.
This has been eye-opening for sure.
For sure.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface of what creators need to know about the legal side of things.
It's an ever-changing landscape, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is.
But the good news is,
By staying informed, being proactive, and building a sustainable business, you're setting yourself up for success.
awesome. And maybe most importantly, don't be afraid to press record and share your work with the world.
I love it.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.